There comes a stage in this journey where everything starts to feel more calculated, more intentional, almost like you've stepped behind the curtain and begun to see the machinery that was always running in the background. Because by now you're no longer guessing completely, you're noticing patterns, forming hypotheses, testing ideas, and this shift from random effort to deliberate execution is where real creators begin to separate themselves from those who are still hoping for luck, because at this point you understand something fundamental that most beginners miss. Growth on YouTube is not an accident. It's engineered over time through observation, adaptation, and repetition. And as this awareness deepens, your relationship with your own content changes again, because now every video you create carries intention. You're not just thinking about what to say, but how to structure it for maximum clarity and engagement, how to keep the viewer moving from one moment to the next without losing interest. And this level of thinking transforms your videos from simple recordings into experiences that guide attention. And once you begin to understand attention at this level, you start to see why some videos succeed while others fade away unnoticed. But with this deeper understanding comes a new kind of pressure, because now you know more, and knowing more means you expect more from yourself, you notice flaws more quickly, you become more critical of your own work. And while this can drive improvement, it can also slow you down if you're not careful, because perfectionism begins to creep in quietly, convincing you to delay uploads, to over-edit, to keep adjusting instead of publishing. And this is where you must remind yourself that progress still matters more than perfection, because on YouTube, consistency beats occasional excellence. At the same time, your awareness of your audience becomes sharper, because now you're not just creating content, you're communicating with people. And even if your audience is still growing, you start to feel their presence, their expectations, their behavior, and this changes how you think about your videos, because you're no longer creating in isolation, you're creating with someone in mind. And this shift makes your content more focused, more relatable, and ultimately more engaging. And this is also where you begin to understand the importance of feedback, not just in the form of comments, but in the form of behavior, because what people do matters more than what they say, where they click, how long they watch, when they leave. All of these signals tell a story, and as you learn to read that story, you gain insight that no tutorial can fully teach, because it's specific to your content, your audience, your approach. But even with all this progress, there are still moments where doubt returns, where a video doesn't perform as expected, where your effort doesn't translate into results, and these moments can feel frustrating, especially now that you understand more. But this is where resilience evolves into something stronger. Discipline mixed with perspective, the ability to continue not just because you hope it will work, but because you understand that improvement takes time, and results often lag behind effort. And as you continue creating, something interesting begins to happen. You start recognizing opportunities, small gaps in content, ideas that others haven't fully explored, angles that feel fresh, and this is where creativity meets strategy, because now you're not just following trends, you're identifying possibilities, and this ability to spot opportunities is what eventually leads to breakthrough moments, those videos that perform better than expected and open new doors. At the same time, your workflow becomes more structured, more efficient, because you've repeated the process enough times to understand what works best for you, how long things take, where you can improve speed without sacrificing quality, and this efficiency becomes crucial because it allows you to maintain consistency without feeling overwhelmed, and in a long-term game like YouTube, sustainability is everything. And gradually, almost without noticing, your identity as a creator solidifies, because you're no longer experimenting blindly, you're building intentionally, refining your voice, your style, your approach, and while you may still be growing, still improving, there's a sense of direction that wasn't there before, a quiet confidence that comes not from results, but from understanding the process. By the time you reach this point, the journey has transformed from something uncertain into something structured, something you can navigate with awareness and purpose. And while success is still not guaranteed, it no longer feels out of reach, because you've moved beyond the beginner stage of confusion and into a phase of clarity, where each decision you make is informed, each video you create is intentional, and each step you take brings you closer to the kind of growth that only comes from consistent, focused effort over time.